Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Xia Taptara speaking with good coffee. Today I am going to show you how to coloring over the line work. It's just going to be the 3/4 portrait. The drawing tutorial already uploaded, so you guys can go watch it on my channel. If you want the image for coloring, so you can use it to practice your coloring, then find me down below in the comments so I can post a final image down. So in the beginning, I'm going to show you what my thought process are and what are my approach in painting this portrait in this angle 3/4. And in this one is slightly different than the last one. This episode 4, I think. I'm putting a little bit of directional lighting down on the side of the face, so it kind of enhance that edge a little bit between the background and the actual portrait. If you have any question, please comment down below. And if you don't have any question and just want to say hi, then you can just comment down below too. I'll get back to all you guys. Also, don't forget to click like. Alright, this one is slightly different from the portrait coloring or painting last time, and we have the plane of face and head. You can just put that on Google and you'll find this plane head maquette images. Sorry. All right, then if you look at the structure, they're basically pretty much similar, except you have the directional lighting involved. Here it has a lighter shadow, but pretty much basically still. Well, if I break it down into plane, you will have this. This plane, right? Which will be the same, except her face doesn't have that much of the plane change, so it's kind of a little more flat. And then, but the nose, you still see that plane that are facing down. So these are all the same plane. You compare to that, right? So this is this part here, and this is this part here, nose, upper lips, and then underneath the lower lips. Then you have this plane of face. Then you have that slight slope that kind of angle down a bit, but it's not as much as the eye socket. And then you have a little bit of the nose bridge and the side plane, but the side plane, this one would be a bit shorter or slightly less slope, right? But then you still have that plane that would catch the light will coming from the side. And this face is a bit more turning this way rather than that one that you see almost like similar to the profile. But usually I would just go for the shadow first, wherever the shadow that if you want to know more about like how I separate the plane of the face, then go take a look on my channel back to episode 3, I think, which is the 3/4. They're the same, but they have a default lighting, which is the lighting is pretty similar or pretty much the same as the image of the plane here. If in this one, well, if we do it differently, we could. I'm just gonna go make it slightly lighter so you can see what's right. So if it's light in terms of contrast, then you can see there's it has the indication of the light and shadow on the same basically the same plane. Then, well, that might be a bit too light. Let me do it again. Let's just lower that first. Yeah. Okay. And then what I did was basically creating the light from the side, right? It's pretty much the same. If I were to add a directional lighting to this, and if it has like the cheeks here, so the lighting coming from the side, directional lighting. But you have a uniform lighting, which is the one, if you not having that directional lighting, you will have the uniform lighting, which is it will show the actual normal form or the default form that you will see in the uniform lighting. To that's when the directional lighting is not involved. Like compared to if you see a face or a person in the overcast light, which on the day that doesn't have any good lighting or directional lighting or strong lighting, or in a rainy day, basically, you can still see form. You can still see a little bit of light and shadow, but it's not as strong as when you have the directional lighting involved. So that's when the directional lighting is coming from, when you're trying to get it onto the face. You might have to plan that ahead of time if you want to get the directional lighting onto your portrait or onto your figure. But essentially, when you're painting something, you have to manage the value of, or the color range and value for your painting, and try to get it into the shorter range on the lower end of the brightness, which means if you're, say maybe I'm explaining a little complicated here. If your brightness, which is, this is the HSB, right? And you have to paint in this spectrum, which you probably won't paint that far back. You can keep your palette limited around here, and your saturation or whatever can be hue or in the short range. But in that color range, you can keep it around here. Then when you add the directional lighting, you can just keep it high, something like that. So that's probably be another way that could make it easier for you to understand. Like this whole phase, without, if you take all that lighting out, which I paint in Procreate, and I didn't have the Procreate here to record, so I couldn't turn off the directional lighting. They're all within the similar value. So if you pick the value all over here, then they are pretty similar. They're not that far apart. If they're far apart, you can still go as dark, and this is the color of as dark as it would go. So these are pretty similar in terms of brightness and saturation. This is really light and that's really dark. So you keep that in that range, and when you add the light, you can have another stronger range, so you can have a very, very strong contrast. Then you can kind of show that the directional lighting is pretty strong. All right, I hope that kind of helped, and well, let's get started on the painting process. All right, so we got the line art here. I'm making a copy of the line for the face. I actually have two layers. One is two layers for the line, sorry. One is for the hair, and the other one is just for the face. And usually I like to make a backup for these layers if they are in, if I have only one file. But if I have a duplicate file, then I don't need to make this duplicate layer for the line art, just because, just in case if I screwed up. That's why I make a duplicate. Or I want to go back in the beginning, right? Because sometimes I go in and erase a bunch of line on the face or on the original line drawing itself. But if I have the original file, which is, if I save like the PSD file or the Procreate file on the different folder, then that should be all fine. But if it's in the same PSD file or the Procreate file, then I have to make a copy of the layers, if you know what I mean, right? So I hope you guys are not confusing. All right, so I make the layer underneath the line drawn, and I usually convert the line drawn layer into the multiply. So so that when the line drawn went over the color, it will always be darker, and that's what you want. And sometimes if you have like a darker, say, color underneath the line drawn, and if the line drawn is not on the multiply, then it would be lighter than the color. Say for instance, the color of the hair, right? So you always want to see the line drawn to be darker, or the outline to be darker than the actual color itself. In some case you don't, but that's a rare occasion. All right, now I'm just painting the color of the skin and the color of the hair, and these are on 100% opacity. If you look at the scale on the left side of the screen, and on the hair I just paint kind of loosely, but on the face I have to make sure that it covered all the area so that I can go in and say if I want to add some gradient or something like that. I'm sorry, not gradient, but if I want to like scale the value or something. And I picked the color, the base color for the lips. So these are all just the base color to begin with. I haven't added any value range on for the color yet. They are just the local color. And a lot of time you see me using a grayscale and applying the local color later, but sometimes I'll just start off with the color and then play with the value range of the color later on. All right, so now if you notice on the top part or the upper lips, the color of the lips will be darker than the lower part of the lip, since the upper lip will most likely, the plane will be facing downward. The plane is facing downward, and the lower lips, the plane are facing upward or to the side or something, so they will receive more light. Now, and sometimes when I look at the recorded screen, sometimes I wonder what I was doing, if the screen was like kind of paused, quite a, if it has like a period of pause for quite a while. And I think right now I'm kind of erasing some of the line, especially on the eyebrows, and I'm adding. So right now I'm trying to play or working cover on the area of the eye socket, and possibly I'll be working on the eyebrows area. I'm trying to make sure if I get the right color and value. And when you're painting, like the background color is very important. If your background color is too light, it will make everything, even though like your background color is white or a little bit off-white when you're painting, it will push all the color that you see when you're painting an object to be even lighter or closer to the lighter range, which is not very accurate in terms of reality. So when you want to get the accuracy of the color of the actual object, you have to change the background color to be that closer to the range of the actual background that's surrounding the object, if there are reference. And usually I like to use the midtone, because most of the time when you see the background, there will be in the mid-range or a little bit lighter than the mid-range, but not as light as the white or the off-white that I had in the beginning. And
when you have the lighter background, it will push skin color or hair color or every other color into the high key range, which is on the higher end of the brightness. And sometimes it could be in your favor, but a lot of time it will make you sort of like a misjudge on choosing the color. So I would go and change your background color into the more of a mid-range, and that's what I just did. And uh, I have the color of the local color for the skin beforehand, right? So I just readjusting the background so that the local color that I put in look lighter than previously does when it has a lighter background. You know what I mean. And then I start rendering the part of the face that are on the side. And since I know that the light will be coming from the top right of the screen, from the side, not from the front, then I could sort of rearrange the lighting direction on the local color before I start adding the highlight. But you can just paint it normally, which, if the plane of the face are facing in the light, if the light is coming in the normal direction, like the top view, right, you can just paint it normally, like um, the bottom of the nose would be darker, and the eye socket would be darker, the upper lip would be darker, and the area underneath the lower lip would be darker. So it would be as if it was a uniform lighting, right? So then you can push it a little, you can push the darker side toward the left side of the screen a little bit, but you don't have to do much. You can just leave everything to the default setting, or the way it's supposed to be in the uniform lighting, before you adding the directional lighting, right? So now I am coming to the I think I am adding the eyebrows and the eyelash and everything else in here, and I'm using, and also trying to not using, the problem I've seen a lot that you guys, some of you guys using a lot of too many color variation in terms of, say the skin color, you use like 4 or 5, and then it's when you mix them all up, it become like super duper muddy because there's too many value range. So you have to decide to use maybe 1 or 2 value, and don't be afraid to like, oh, this is too little value. That's, to begin with, that should be enough value for you to use. And the majority, you have to pick one to be the majority of it, and then the rest of them, you use them to accent the majority, or the one that you put on. Like you can, if you see the face here, there's only 2 value range for now on the skin, and that's fine for now because I'm not painting a particular object on that yet. If I'm adding the nose, then I would add more value, which I will need because it will have a darker corner, right? So I'm gonna need a darker value for the skin tone. But now I am just using the eyelash, or around the area around the eyebrows and the eyelash, to have only 1 or 2 value. If I want the eyelash to be the same color as the eyebrow, then that should be cool. Or if I want the eyebrows to be a slightly different color than eyelash because she's using eyeshadow or something, then I can just pick a color that is closer to the hair, and I could actually do that, right? So you don't have to have the eyebrows and the eyelash be the same color. All right, and now I cover the area that surrounding the eye and the eyebrows. And at this point, if I can still tweaking the shape, or I can push the feature and make it look better slightly a little bit, then I will still kind of do it. So I don't actually stick to the original drawing that I have, unless if it was if I have to stick to the original, like if the client wants, like, hey, we want that if it has a design before, or if it does have like a model sheet, then I'm gonna have to stick to whatever previously approved. But for if I just do it for fun, then I will just keep playing with it and see what comes out. And now it looks like the top part is gonna be fine. I can just leave it for now and go play with the rest. Usually I don't work all the way to finish if I play it or work on a particular part. Like I don't go to the eyes area and try to finish them all at once, and then go to the nose and try to finish them all at once. I'll just move each part for like a couple more steps. Like I'll go to the eyes and push it a couple more steps, and I'll go to the nose and push it to a few more steps. Then I'll go back and I'll just basically how I work it. I try to improve or make it further as a whole. So I'm not trying to finish each one of them, each section, right? Because sometimes I see some of the others, I don't know how they work, because they kind of, oh, I've finished this one section and the other one section, which usually those are, if you have like a reference or something, then I think that's possible. Or even then, like the artists that I've seen working in life drawing, and they have like a model or something, they work by overall progress, not by sectional progress, or working the progress. I think I've seen some which kind of weird, but that's not usually what I've seen from a lot of people that I've worked with, or that I have seen teaching me. Anyways, yeah, that's beside the point. Why would I think of that? I'm not sure. So just keep progressing as an overall piece, or the area that you're trying to work on, right? So you're not trying to, like, if this one is just I'm just practicing the portrait, so I'm just gonna focus solely on the hair and the face, and the rest of them are just gonna be scribble. And don't get confused if I'm not trying to finish, if I don't finish this whole piece and I'm saying, hey, why did he say that finish the whole piece and then he just finished part of the area? What I'm trying to say is just like progressing the whole piece as a whole, and if it looks good, right? So not like particular piece like eyes or nose or something like that. So I hope you're not confused by what I'm saying, and try to progress the overall. And now I'm still working on the eyes, and now I'm going on to the line, because sometimes when I have too many, I should have merged this, but then sometimes I don't know why I don't merge. Maybe I just want to keep going back and forth, or maybe it has some layer that can be merged or something, or I don't want to merge headed down the hair. But if you have a lot of layers, sometimes it's easier to work with, but it's also hard to work with, because if you have a line drawn, then sometimes you have to go back onto that line layer and erase some of the line if you don't want to paint over it. But if you want to paint over it, you can just use one layer and use that layer to paint over. So now I'm adding a darker skin color, like I mentioned earlier, on the nose, the side of the nose, because those on this area it is going to be an occlusion shadow. And sometime you can keep that line work, or you can try to render the whole thing. But usually I try to keep it as extension of a line work, which means I would shift it to shape, and it will look like an actual, like, sometimes actual painting that doesn't have a line work. And I usually try to get rid of all the line as a whole and try to change it into something, say the color of the line, instead of black, I'll use some other things, and I'll play with the line width, which is like thick and thin, and eventually change its shape, and it will look more so like a painting. And now I'm turning off the area that has the eyelash, and I'm trying to cover those previous line drawn by using the skin color to paint over those area by, it's on a different layer actually, but I'm just going to paint over the eyelash. And eventually I'll make the eyelash slightly thinner, because I sort of want to make it a little, like in here, the eyelash is a bit too thick, so it makes her feature look a little more Western, right? So I want to kind of squeeze that a little bit and have a little less and make her hair, make her eyes a little more East Asian like. But that doesn't mean East Asian can't have like big eyes. That just means like that's just my preference of what I want in this one, like the certain shape of the eyes, right? Or that doesn't mean that the Western people can have uh, thin eyes, right? Because sometimes you see like the Finnish or the Norwegian has uh, a really sort of like a smaller eyes or thinner eyes than um, the say the rounder ones. I'm not sure what it is, um, but most likely you won't see the Middle Eastern or the Italian or the Indian with the small eyes. But as you go north, you will be able to see that maybe it helps with the reflection of the sun from the snow in the ground, I guess. If you have wider vision and it's kind of block the sun from below, the light from below. I think I watched that from the documentary somewhere. Um, anyways, so now I'm thinning it out. So um, the eyelash is a little thinner. And let's see, what am I going to work on next? Probably I'm going to work on the nose button. All right, so now I am going to clean up the line or using the darker color and painting over the existing line drawn. So it's going to be as sort of like an outline, and like I said earlier, I maybe change its shape to be thicker, thinner, or something like that. And eventually, some of them, the line can change into something that doesn't look like line. So that's what my purpose is. Sometimes it would, like if you make it thicker, it might not look like a line anymore in some part. And some part is thin, like thick and thin line. And some discontinuation, right, of some line, then you can change it into something else entirely. So it doesn't look like line anymore. But in this one, I think in the end, it will still look sort of like line. And plus, this is like a really quick demo or a really quick demonstration that I want you guys to see. And I have to paint. I'm trying to paint it within less than an hour, so it won't look as good as some of the people that painted for like quite a while, like 3-4 hours in the portfolio. So I hope you understand that this is for the quickie, right? All right, but for the most part, I'm trying to make it as accurate or as presentable as I can. All right, now I'm still tweaking the shape of the eyes and keep zooming in and out. And now I'm playing with the shape of the eyelash again because I still don't quite like it. So I start to play with the shape. So I try to arrive at the one that I'm kind of gonna be more happy with. So it's not too simple. It's not too plain, and it's not uh, overly like trying too hard to get the eyelash. Like if you put too much makeup on, something like that. All right, now I'm painting the iris, and I'm going to paint the lips now. So I'm gonna pick, like when you go darker, you should have more saturation and pushing the hue toward the red a little bit more, because most of the time the shadow will fall into the range of the warmth color if you're assuming the light is cool. All right, so now I'm cleaning up the area inside the mouth because it has some of the line work that is dark and it looks like a shadow, but I'm gonna clean it out, and I'm trying to make it lighter color and less of a black color, because the line drawing usually have like black or gray, right? And sometimes you want to avoid that on the color stage, because it might create a distraction if it has like a darker value, because the darker value will always draw your eyes in, or the really dark spot, right? It creates attention, too much attention around the color. All right, so now we are almost done with the lip part. So the upper lips most of the time will be darker and slightly more saturated when you go to that range. And now I'm adding a darker skin tone on the area underneath the lower lips. And if you notice, the light's coming from the at the moment sort of like the top, but slightly on the top right, slightly, so you can, but it's still like a uniform lighting. It's not totally on the sideway yet. Until I put the directional lighting on, then you will kind of see where the light's actually coming from. I could actually paint the right side of the screen, the face on the right side of the screen, to be darker, but I'm just gonna leave it. So don't get confused. It's still kind of like a uniform lighting with just a little bit lighting from that right side of the screen. Maybe I shouldn't mention it, but just in case you guys wonder. Now you guys are confused. Like, what the hell is he talking about? All right. Now it's the nose time. I'm trying to decide if I would go darker on the nostril, which I think it's kind of fine at the moment. I don't have to go darker, but I could. Like when I first begin to draw, nostril are like the most scariest thing to draw, right? The scariest thing to draw, because if you get it wrong, then your face is screwed. But don't be afraid. Just try to get. It's all about the shape. If you get the shape right, then it will be fine. But for the most part, when people draw and nostrils, they get the wrong shape, and that's why the face look weird. You get the right shape of the nostril, and think about the plane and the perspective and which angle your face is looking or facing. Let's say if your face is tilt, or if your face is rotate, if you turn, if you a little bit of any change of angle would affect the nose immensely, because the nose situate like the nostril locate on the bottom plane of your nose, or on the bottom plane of the tip of your nose. So doesn't matter what you do, it will affect a lot because you already see it in the perspective. So, and now I'm adding a little bit of directional lighting. Ta-da! Usually when you see if you've seen my other tutorial before on directional lighting, I usually do it at the last stage because it's kind of easier. But in reality, you can do it at mid stage, from the mid stage to up. And the reason I do it in the last stage for the most part is that because I work on the figure or the character design or the portrait on the uniform lighting, and I did the lighting part in the final or closer to the final stage because I can still change it, and I want to play and experiment which side of the lighting will create the best impact, even though I planned it from the get-go which direction it will be coming from, but I still want to have an option, right? So it's not like I'm just, okay, let's just apply that and see what if it will come out look good. Like usually I kind of have an idea of which direction of the light is coming from when I apply the directional lighting, and usually I want them to enhance the or help with bringing out the focal point or the form. So, and in here, the lighting is coming from the slightly right side of the screen on the top, a little bit perhaps. And it will eventually have the highlight on the hair also. So, and now I'm trying to see how far I could push these, right? Say if I turn or if I push the light to be further, but eventually I didn't push it further. I kind of keep it on the smaller end. So I'm just gonna skip this part, I guess, because I didn't want to confuse you guys. So I just keep that light just on the edge. But previously I was trying to expand it into a little bit more onto the front, but it doesn't look quite okay. It looks too blown up. So I kind of just keep it as it was on the edge. It looks better this way, in my opinion. And now I'm adding the red coat. Don't know if I kind of think she's wearing some sort of a cloak. Not sure. Just kind of randomly pick the color. And I like red. I used to not like red, but it's go on me a little bit. Usually like the more of an earth tone kind of guy. All right, now I'm just kind of adding a darker value that's supposed to be on the darker side. All right. So I add a little bit too much of the dark red, and like I said earlier, keep it simple and simplify. So I will keep red the majority of the value into just two values. Like the darkest one, I'll keep it at the smallest amount because like previously a little bit earlier, I kind of put way too much of the darkest red and it looks terrible. And at this point, it still kind of look terrible. I have to kind of, sometimes when I try to finish the illustration, I have to take a walk and come back and take a look at it. But since I'm doing this in one go, because it's only like an hour or less than an hour long, then sometimes I could have a misjudge when I take a look at it. And I'm getting old, so all right. And now I'm just going to paint the hair and try to keep everything in, like, try to think simple. Don't complicate things. Don't try to add too many things or too many equation, like too many value or too many color range, something like that. Try to keep it at 2 or 3 value max at for the most of the time that you're painting. Try to keep your value at that level. You want to add them in the end, and for the majority of it you are not going to have way too many. And now I'm like on the hair, it's just like loosely painted. I didn't really like it much. I should have kept it at 1 or 2 value in the solid, like bigger, or maybe 1 or 2 shade, but not like, try to keep it in the same area if it's 1 value, and the other area, like keep the light and the shadow, right? The light should be in the light, the shadow should be in the shadow, and the what would make them good is that they're on the edge. Like on the face, if you look at the face, it has a clear area of where the light tone, the mid tone, and the highlight would be. The highlight would be like it is the least covered area, right? And the mid tone and the dark area of the skin, it has that. But on the hair that I kind of paint, I think I kind of forgot, or I make a misjudgment call or something, so it doesn't look as crisp as the space on the skin, because I was and now I'm cleaning up on the bang a little bit, and eventually if I have time I'm going to go clean up on the left side of the screen, the hair. But on the part that below her chin, I think that part kind of worked fine. And if you see on the light part and the dark part, it has those edges that create the silhouette between the light and the shadow, and that's where you want them to kind of be. But the biggest part of the hair that has like a lot of scribble, they're just at this point is not quite done yet. And if I have time, I'm going to go clean it up. And that's not what you quite want if you want to get this one done. Now I'm adding directional lighting on the bang. And when you add this, it draws the attention. It draws your eyes to that area that has a high contrast, or the light that is bright. And this can help covering up your mistake a lot. Like your eyes will turn away from that bad paint job part on the left side on the hair. Well, sometimes you still can see it anyways, if like if people who have a lot of experience and see like, oh, this is terrible. Like I could see it, I was like, what the hell is that? It's bad paint job. All right, now yeah, I think I'm almost done. So this should be pretty much it, and the rest are just trying to find your way to sort of clean up that mess on the left side of the hair, or retweak, or playing with the shape, or make it clean up all these like paint that are not quite finished, and readjust the shape in between the edges, things like that. Yeah, but for the most part, this should be like okay. Like you see that right next to that her cheeks on the highlight is still, it has that weird highlight. So that's where I actually want to go in and clean that up. And if you look at the overall sum of the area and you see something that doesn't look quite right, then you want to kind of go clean it up. It's kind of like, you kind of going back in and make sure everything looks okay. Things like, the lip, the shape of the lips, or the shape of the nose, or the shape of the eyes, or the hair, the value, the color, or whatever it is that you can see and you can cover. All right, well, hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. This is almost there. We probably have about maybe 10 minutes left. If you want to know more about digital painting, you can go take a look or check out the Ultimate Digital Painting for Beginners on cubebrush.co/Xia Taptara or Gumroad. The link are all down below. And if you want to maybe take a mentorship class, then the link's down below also, right? And then you can put your name on the waiting list, or just, if you're lucky, maybe I have a spot next week. I don't know. I'm just saying. And yeah, but I usually reply to all you guys that are putting yourself on the waiting list. And I said a lot, huh? I don't know why. Maybe I'm just getting old. Did I used to? I'm not sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. And if I didn't upload any new video, then have a happy New Year's and enjoy. I hope the 2019 were great for you guys, was great for me, and I hope that the next year, 2020, will be awesome for everyone. Have a happy New Year's, guys. Bye bye.